On 23 August 1328, the Battle of Cassel took place near the city of Cassel, 30 kilometers south of Dunkirk in present-day France. Philip VI fought Nicolas Zanneken, a wealthy farmer from Lampenissa. Zanneken was the leader of a band of Flemish independence rebels. The fighting erupted over taxation and punitive edicts of the French over the Flemish. The battle was won decisively by the French. Zanneken and about 3,200 Flemish rebels were killed in the battle. Beginnings. The Count of Flanders, Louis I, was collecting taxes for Charles IV of France. Residents of the bailiwicks of Ern, St. Win-Oxbergen, Bell, Cassel, Poperinge and Bourg united and refused to pay. The Count threatened reprisals and the people rioted, under the leadership of Nicolas Zanneken. In 1325, Zanneken captured Nieuwpoort, Vern and Ypres. He also captured Kortrijk and the Count of Flanders himself. Later attempts to capture Ghent and Oudenaarde failed. In February 1326, Charles IV intervened and Louis I was released and the Peace of Arques was agreed. Role of the Church. On 6 April 1327, at the request of Charles IV, Pope John XXII of Avignon renewed an interdict which denied those in Flanders, other than the aristocracy and the clergy, the sacraments of the Church and a sacred burial. The Pope was seen as a puppet of the king. The Flemish clergy disagreed about whether or not to apply the rule. Some clergymen laid the papal regulation aside. Jean Lane, Dean of St. Win-Oxbergen, asked the clergy of his diocese to apply the regulation. Jacob Pate, a leader of the Flemish rebels in Hondschoote, tried to capture Lane and pressure the clergy to ignore the edict. The rebels' actions had some success. Influence of the French and English royalty. Louis I feared the Flemish and Edward III would form a coalition against him. He asked Charles IV of France to intervene. Louis I departed from Ghent to Paris to plead his case. On 24 January 1328, Edward III married Philippa of Hainaut. Philippa was the daughter of William I, Count of Hainaut of Auvergne and Holland, who was an ally of Charles IV. On 1 February 1328, Charles IV died unexpectedly. Edward III claimed the throne of France, but the aristocracy favoured Philip, the son of Charles of Valois, who ascended the throne as Philip V. The Pope urged Philip to sort out the Flemish rebels. The king re-established the rights of the Flemish aristocracy, but violence erupted and some were overrun and slain by the Flemish rebels. Louis I, Count of Nevers, fled to seek help from Philip V. William Dean, Mayor of Bruges, an ally of the Flemish rebels, hoped the marriage of Philippa and Edward III would assuage the English king in his dealings with Flanders. In June 1328, Dean travelled to England seeking support for the Flemish movement. Even though Edward III was troubled with a Scottish rebellion at the time and still held a desire to claim the French throne, he was reconciled with Philip V and did not lend his support. Situation in the Flemish lands. Louis I gained the upper hand against the Flemish rebels when the Bishop of Paris signed a document to the effect that anyone causing unrest would be beaten and the property confiscated, with half the proceeds going to the treasury of France. Nevertheless, the unrest continued. For example, in 1322, Louis I had forbidden cloth production outside Ypres. The town of Poperinge ignored the monopoly and the leper militia formed. Again, on 8 August 1328, in Bruges, rebels were led in uprising by Jan Bradel. The French army. The English Queen's father, Count William I of Hainaut, Holland, was one of the commanding officers in the French army. He commanded the Hainaut, Holland, Zeeland and Friesland Knights. Philip VI sent archers from Provence, Languedoc, and Genoa and soldiers from Bohemia. Other rulers, the King of Navarre, the Crown Prince of Austria, the Dukes of Burgundy, Brittany, Lorraine and Bourbon, the Counts of Alençon, Bar and Savoy all sent military support. Altogether, the army which amassed in Arras included 2,500 heavily armed knights on horseback and 12,000 light infantrymen and archers. However, Louis I was not present. He was most likely raising troops in and around Oudenaarde and Ghent. The battle. Philip V was confident of winning the battle and paying the costs of his army with the plunder. He positioned a force along the Lys River. The Flemish rebels were forced to guard Lille and Tournai. The military forces in Bruges were strengthened to control the Flemish rebels around Ghent. The French army arrived at the Augustinian Abbey at Warnton. They aimed to divide the Flemish troops by advancing along the River Lys, forcing the Flemings to cover the approaches from Lille and Tournai. Zanneken, with 15,000 soldiers, encamped on the higher ground at Cassel, approximately 4 kilometers from the French. Nothing happened for about 3 days. The French tried to exhaust the Flemish rebels and lure them away from their position. On the 23rd of August, the French soldiers set fire to several villages near Cassel to distract the Flemish, but the maneuver failed. Zanneken attacked in 3 divisions. He commanded the division which attacked the French centre. He surprised the French infantrymen and in panic, they fled towards Saint-Omer. The Duke of Lorraine was killed, but Dukes of Burgundy and Brittany and the Counts of Bar, Boulogne and Savoy were badly wounded but did not die. The French knights, because it was a very hot day, had removed their armour to rest, but under Robert of Cassel they regrouped and attacked the 1st Flemish Division from the rear. The 2nd Division was assigned to attack on the left wing to take the Hennegauers, the Dutch and the Frisians. They had little success and were captured or killed. The 3rd Division remained in reserve.